On February 3rd, 2025, President Donald Trump signed an order to create a plan for America's first sovereign wealth fund within 90 days. This could change how the US government handles money, funds important projects, and competes in the global economy. But what exactly is a sovereign wealth fund? And how would the US pay for it? And would it succeed like Norway, Singapore, and Saudi Arabia? Or would it fail like Malaysia's 1MDB scandal? If you don't know about that, just Google Miranda Kerr and see-through piano, and you're welcome. Hey, I'm Seth Moran. I retired last year as a managing director after 20 years in finance. And I'm here to explain all of this in a really simple way. So let's get started. What is a sovereign wealth fund? A sovereign wealth fund is a big investment fund owned by a government. It holds money and assets to help a country stay financially strong for the longer term. Many sovereign wealth funds, or sovereigns, are funded by profits from natural resources like oil and gas. They invest in things like stocks, bonds, real estate, and technology. Most countries use sovereigns for three main reasons. One, economic stability, to protect the economy during bad times, like Norway used its oil fund during the financial crisis. Two, saving for the future, to make sure future generations have financial security. Three, strategic investment, to invest in key industries and strengthen the country's economy, like Singapore and Saudi Arabia. And it's worth mentioning some US states like Alaska and Texas, Alaska being the biggest, already have their own small sovereign wealth funds. I'll throw them up on the screen so you can check them out. But they're all mostly funded by their own natural resources, so like oil and gas revenue. So how would the US sovereign wealth fund work? Well, the Trump administration has four big goals for the sovereign wealth fund. One is to reduce national debt by using investment profits instead of borrowing money in order to pay down their already existing debt. Another is lowering taxes for families and businesses by using the fund's earnings. Another way is providing long-term financial security to future generations. And finally, they want to compete globally with other sovereign wealth funds in areas like technology, infrastructure, and strategic assets. But unlike most sovereign wealth funds that rely on natural resource money, the US would need to find a different way to fund it, since the government already owes $36.2 trillion. Yes, that's a 36.2 followed by 11 zeros. So how would the US pay for it? Well, since the US doesn't have extra oil or gas money laying around like Norway or Saudi Arabia, the government might raise money for the sovereign fund in other ways. They could be selling government assets. The US owns $5.7 trillion in assets, including lands, buildings, and gold reserves. But not all of this is liquid and easy to sell. Realistically, only about $1.5 to $2 trillion could be turned into cash. The US collects billions of dollars in tariffs, or taxes on imported goods, every year, and some of this money to go into paying off the fund. And as we all know from Donald Trump's political campaign and what he's already done in his first month in office, he really wants to increase tariffs on imported goods. Another way is through seized assets and forfeitures. The government seizes money, properties, and even cryptocurrencies from criminals and foreign adversaries. Think Silk Road and Russian oligarchs here. The US likely holds around $10 billion in seized assets, give or take $5 billion off that, because the real number just keeps on changing. There could be investments from pension and investment funds. The sovereign wealth fund could allow investment from US pension funds or even foreign pension funds, similar to how Norway's sovereign fund works. They could be buying companies. Trump suggested that the fund could buy companies like TikTok to boost the national security while making money. Some argue this could lead to too much government control over businesses and even personal data. The US will likely use a mix of all these different strategies to try to finance the sovereign wealth fund. So how would the US sovereign wealth fund be managed? A key question is whether the fund would be actively or passively managed. So what's the difference? Well, through active management, the government picks and invests in certain industries and companies. Through passive management, the fund invests in stocks and bonds, similar to Norway's approach. Active management could boost important industries, but it might lead to corruption or bad political decisions. Passive management is safer and transparent, but it doesn't really help specific industries grow. Given Trump's personal business approach, the US sovereign wealth fund will most likely be actively managed, focusing on infrastructure, manufacturing, and tech investments. So what are the risks? Well, a lot of experts worry about political interference. The fund could become a tool or a weapon for political gain rather than a neutral investment. Also, others say there's no extra revenue. So unlike other countries, the US doesn't have the oil money to fund the sovereign wealth fund, making asset sales and debt concerns a real problem. Others worry that potential lack of oversight. If there isn't a strong management and compliance team in place, corruption could become an issue. Also, there's market distortion. The government investment could disrupt financial markets and hurt private businesses. Despite these risks, supporters argue that a well-run sovereign wealth fund could really help the US reduce debt, build infrastructure, and boost economic security. Is this a smart move, or is this a big mistake? Creating a U.S. sovereign wealth fund would be a huge change in how America manages its money. If done right, it could strengthen the economy. But if mismanaged, it could become a political and financial disaster. Now, would this fund help America grow, or would it cause more problems? My guess is that it would push U.S. stocks even higher, similar to how Norway's fund owns 1.5% of all stocks globally. If this were to happen, I'd be betting on U.S. tech, utilities, infrastructure, and domestic demand-related stocks. What do you think? Should the U.S. follow Norway's careful strategy or take bold investment risks like Saudi Arabia? Let me know in the comments. And don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell for more simple explanation of markets and finance. And remember, kindness is the rent we pay on earth, so do something nice for someone.